everybody, Ben here from the Bonehead podcast, and we have got one heck of an unboxing review for you today. We are going to be looking at these guys here. That's right, we have got our hands on the Greebo Games Dwarf team that is coming very, very soon. You guys have probably seen their Kickstarter previews and some of the art, like this one here, that just spoils the kind of style they're going for and the art direction. So the Kickstarter campaign is called the ThunderCougar FalconBeards, which I've been told is an inside reference to Futurama. But anyway, it's a very cool name for a very cool project. We've got the full dwarf team here, so let's open the box and have a look at all the miniatures. So we've got two trays of gorgeous miniatures here. We are going to start with the infantry guys first. We'll leave the death roller for now. There are 17 guys, 17 infantry essentially, and one big guy. So there's a ton of stuff in here, and you know what Kickstarters are like, and you know what Greebo Games is like. We're going to end up with a ton of gorgeous star players as well. In fact, they're doing some social stretch goals at the moment. 2 have been unlocked. You can start to see where they're going with this Kickstarter, and it is going to be where they're going with this team, in fact, and it's going to be absolutely insane. So first things first, let's pop the lid on this one here. You get a ton of bases. They are not slotters, they are whole sealed bases, which is fantastic news. They are about the same size as the Blood Bowl ones, ever so slightly wider, really means nothing, and ever so slightly thinner, but you will barely notice if not. And if you like to stick with just the one size of base, just grab a pack of the Games Workshop ones if you want to be consistent. So where to start? Let's bring these guys up here so we can have a look at the camera. I think we'll just line these up and have a good old look at the detail. So we've got everything lined up, and you can see we've got all 17 players of the pack here. Why are there 17? Well, we've got 2 Troll Slayers up here, 2 Blitzers here, 2 Runners here, we'll have a look at them in a second, and 11 Line Dwarfs. So I love that. You can actually run the 11 Line Dwarf roster with this team. It's basically maxed out all the positionals. Plus you've got the Death Roller separately. So I was thinking, is there a star player in here? Is there something else going on? They have done a great job, and not only that, they've got some alternate sculpts here for the line people, for the line dwarves, that are essentially female dwarves. And as you can see, the sculpting and detail is just fantastic. Now, these are made in Greeblood, which is more akin to 3D printing than it is the classic resin. And you can see, and this is why I'm using this one here, you've got no flash, no mold lines, but you do end up with a bit of dust. Now, all it takes, good work hitting the camera there, Ben, is a bit of a dust off with a big old brush, you know, and it cleans up beautifully. I'm really impressed with that. Resin miniatures, sometimes you've got to do the whole, I haven't built them yet because I haven't cleaned them yet. These are good to go. All you need to do is get like this, a big dry brush or a toothbrush or something, and just give them a really solid dust off before you prime them or anything, and they're going to be good to go. So let's look at the runners first. So there are 2 runners in this set. One of them is the runner. You know he's the runner because he's got the ball. You can see that's actually an incredibly dynamic pose for a dwarf player. One thing we're going to point out when we look at a lot of these miniatures is look at the detailing on the armor. Okay, there is a theme here. It's that kind of dwarven Celtic hybrid. You know, they've got all the shapes, everything. It's fantastic. So you can see it execute all the way through in the same way that Games Workshop's one does. It has the angles. It has that kind of masonry effect. So do these guys, and he's got the kind of rounded runner's hat there. So that's one of the runners. The other one is performing the role of pretending to be a catcher, and everybody knows that the closest thing you've got to a catcher on a dwarf team is probably the runner. So these two, being the most dynamic, makes a lot of sense. One of them has the ball, one of them looks like he's going for the ball, and that is kind of what you want your runners to do. We've got everyone's favourite positional here on the dwarf team, the Slayer. This guy with Frenzy and Dauntless and just a whole bunch of carnage coming in, and look at it, you've got the classic Slayer vibe, you've got the classic Slayer mohawk. You can't have a Slayer without a mohawk, it's just obscene. The great thing about this, he's not flying around on his beard, but he does have a very sizable beard, and again, something we're going to see on every single one of these miniatures. Can I get that any closer? Not potentially. The braiding on the beard, you can see the indentation of the armor here, you know, which we've looked at before. You've got the indentation of the armor where it follows that motif. You've got the threading of the beard. You've got all the different hairs, and just the sculpting, all the different. So you've got the fur there as well. You've got the fur look on his. I'm just gonna say briefs. You know, this guy is the equivalent of a David Hasselhoff on the dwarf team. And here's his buddy as well. You can say same classic kind of Slayer look. Got some serious mobility about him. Got some serious muscles, like absolutely hench. Great work on the fabric there. But yeah, these guys running down the beach, ready to save your game. Very David Hasselhoff. And it's time for the Blitzers. So these are two of my favourite miniatures in the set. This one, absolutely flying. So more mobility. The sculpts here are fantastic. Like the way they have sculpted so much movement in Dwarves is phenomenally good. So look at the detailing on the helmet. Big old wings. You've got the same armor motifs. You've got the same level of detail there on the plaits, on the beard. You've got the hair. It's just absolutely fantastic. Some proper shiny, sharp bits. And you can see the different armor on each of these models, even though it's kind of tied in. You know, you've got round mail. You've got these little chunky dwarf bits all tying in to that overall dwarf theme. But this one is hands down my best miniature, my favourite miniature. Look at the helmet on that guy. Look at the face there. Look at the power. Like, first of all, in a proper power stance. But look at this. You can see all the detail of the armour. You've got like a little lion face there. And the way that the Greebo works is, because it's, like I said, more similar to 3D printing, you get these bits that are just sticking out. And there's no flash at all. A bit of a dust, and these are good to go. And we can't go without looking at the line dwarfs. So this is another one of the female dwarf sculpts. So yes, we've got some curvaceous body armor there, but it makes a lot of sense when you are this heavily armored. So you've got this one there with the great work on the sculpt, and this one here. You can definitely see that they are supposed to be female dwarves, which is really cool to see a bit of variety in Blood Bowl. And because they are ever so like slighter as well, they're going to kind of stand out, and you could even use these perhaps as your runners because they've got a little bit less kind of armor, they've got a little bit less block. So if you wanted to go a different route with building your team, you could use those two miniatures because there is a position, because there's two, and you kind of got that pair of positionals. Right, let's have a look at a couple of these blockers. Let's go for this guy here first. So no armor on the head, no helmet, that's what that's called. But look at the sculpting of the face here. Again, detail on the beard. You've got an incredible amount of armor detail. You've got all the right textures, whether it comes to fabric, whether it comes to metal. So we've got a great dwarf blocker here. We'll look at the size in a second, but look at this guy. He's absolutely pinched to be the center of your line. I don't think I've ever been more excited to run dwarves than I am now looking at these miniatures. Alright, it's that time. It's time for the size comparison test. So we've got a few miniatures from my desk here. We've got Skrull, we've got a Dwarf Troll Slayer, and I think the Dwarf Troll Slayer, being from the Games Workshop team, is probably the one we are the most interested in trying the size of. Now, the difficult thing is obviously that this guy has a prehensile tail effect coming off his beard, which means he can wander around on it. Right, let's line these bad boys up. So this guy has got height because he is in flight. But look at the mass of this dwarf. So this is one of the Blitzers. So let's side them up. Side by side is about the same scale, which is fantastic to see. If we grab one of the other guys, if we line him up, yep, he's a bit shorter because he's flying. But if you look at the kind of body length, body hench size, the dwarf from Greebo is about the same size, if not a little bit chunkier than the Games Workshop one. So a couple of the dwarves are a little bit smaller, but again, when you line them up with the G-Dub Trolls there, they're going to be a little bit shorter, but they are going to have that mass edge. And when you line them up in a kind of Death Guard tackle line, you're not going to notice. So we'll have a look at the other miniatures as well to give you a bit of a size. But Troll Slayer 1 against Troll Slayer 2. The thing I really love about the Greebo Games miniatures is they've kind of got that trapezoid shape about them, which is... They've got a video game-ish kind of style which matches their Black Orc team brilliantly, which is one of my favourite third-party teams. But they've got that edging element that makes them dwarves. They've got the size that makes them Blood Bowl, and their heads are ever so slightly heroic scale. Heroic scale enough compared to the Games Workshop dwarves. They're not Fanath level, which is very second edition Blood Bowl. But anyway, size-wise, this Slayer against this Slayer, he's got a bit more mass to him. I think the G-Dub one has a little bit more height potentially, but then again, he's flying around on his beard. So, does it pass the Troll Slayer test? Yes, it does. Let's have a look just to compare and to show the fact that dwarves come in different shapes and sizes. The Troll Slayer is a chunky boy when you compare him to Skrull. Poor Skrull. Clearly death has not worked out very well for him. So let's grab one of the female dwarfs. As you can see, about the same height as Skrull when bent over, so going to have a little bit of height on him. And let's get that Troll Slayer back now and chuck the female one on the base. And you can see there, height and size, even though these ones are ever so slighter than some of the linemen, it's going to blend in. It's going to blend in beautifully. So what else have we got to compare him against before we move on to the Death Roller? Black Orc size versus the Troll Slayer size. Strength 4, Strength 3. 100% believe that. And then the Goblin Strength 2 test against Strength 3. Absolutely bang on. But let's face it, this is what you're here for, which is the Death Roller, which is basically Dr. Robotnik with a massive rolling pin with spikes on. So this dude comes with this main body with two little steampunk legs, which itself is a massive piece of kit. Let me grab a Black Orc here so we can do a little bit of a cheeky size comparison. Yeah, there's some serious strength in this guy here. So it comes in one piece there as the body. You've got the rolling pin of doom here. You've got the two arms that connect to it. And then you've got these little two bits here, which I'm sure I'll find out what they are in just a moment. Oh, it's the dwarf pilot's hands. There you go. Now, because it's important to point out what you're buying, obviously the Greebo, like we said, is more akin to 3D printing. So this is the only place I've seen it in, but we've got some supports here. So little bits of plastic that are formed when creating the miniatures. It's just on this one side. This side here, nothing at all. You can see it's come off and been cleaned up. The cleanup work here, the cleanup and the setting, the curing is fantastic. Like it's really good. The casting quality and the finish is amazing. So with these bits here, you just have to kind of snap them off and then file it down to make sure that it's all right. I just give it a bit of a wiggle there and then boom, that should pop off and then you'll be ready to build it. Now you can be as careful as you like or not. It should snap off and shouldn't affect any detail, but you do want to be careful when you see supports that are left on there. This is why it's so important to dry fit your miniatures first. So when you are building this miniature, you can see that there's a little divot there, and that divot lines up to the side. So when you put the miniature together, it kind of has to line up, and you'll see that it doesn't move anymore. So that is going to help massively when building it, and I think that's just what we'll do. And there we have it. So it goes together really, really easily. Probably glue the hands in the cockpit before you glue the arms on the side. That was silly. Should have known that. So this is absolutely massive on the pitch. This is going to be quite entertaining to use. Now, you guys know I'm a massive fan of big guys with big bases. So we looked at the Zealot Miniature Minotaur. It's around about, it's a similar size, to be honest with you. Let me grab the 40mm base that comes in the set. And you can see that when we put it on the base, it takes up most of the space, which is absolutely fine. As long as you put it on the back of the base, you're going to have to do a little bit of work to get it on the pitch. But you know what? With all the big and all the best big guys, you kind of have to do that anyway. So once it's built, we already looked at the size a little bit, but let's grab a little human guy, and you can see that the size comparison is absolutely massive. So this this is just such a sweet miniature. It's up there with the Fanath one. Look at that. I haven't even put this guy on the base yet, and it's twice the size. I don't know how to not paint this with a kind of Sonic paint scheme, because this is just, if Blood Bowl did Robotnik, this would be it. This is just so much fun. Okay, so you guys know I love big guys, but I've not always been the biggest fan of dwarfs. This team may change that a little bit, because I really genuinely, actually, surprisingly, want to get these guys on the pitch. So let's talk about a couple of things. The first is the size. They look a little small, but actually they compare really nicely to the Games Workshop Blood Bowl stuff. So they've done a really good job to make sure that the sizes match. So really pleased with that. You guys will not be surprised that the sculpting is just top tier. I think is probably the best way to describe Greebo Games. They are the top tier of Blood Bowl manufacturers. This stuff makes Games Workshop stuff look like garbage, which is pretty fun for us as Blood Bowl players. So there's that. The style itself is kind of World of Warcraft-y, kind of fantasy dwarfy, which is exactly what you expect, but they've kind of got like a video game-esque edge to it, and the reason I say that is it's just got that fluidity, that big boldness about it. The art of this would work beautifully on a trading card game, and that is a style that I love. I love that about their Black Orc team, and I love it about this. Greebo are building this kind of slightly adjacent style to Blood Bowl that just 100% works. This is some of the loveliest stuff that I have seen for Blood Bowl. Greeblood. Normally at this point I'd say the casting is fantastic. So Greeblood, definitely along the lines of 3D printing. We saw a couple of supports. That is it. That is everything we've had here. Sure, had to give it a bit of a dust off. So their moulding and casting process, or printing process, however they do it, is working. This team takes no time to get to the pitch. The only model that is in more than one piece was this bad boy here, which was in 6 pieces and 2 with little arms. It took no time at all. I am a massive fan of this. Now, you guys know I'm a bit of a 3D printer guy, but now anyway. But buying a 3D printed team at a price that, hey, whatever they're going to charge for it, just do it. Okay, there's no building, there's no flash, there's no mold lines. There's a bit of dusting and the occasional bit of support or something. Their curing process, their cleaning process, it does smell like 3D printed stuff, especially this big guy. I was like, I recognise that smell. It's what my studio smells of. So it could actually be my studio, to be fair. It's definitely the miniatures. But that's fine. I love this. The style is fantastic. The quality is... I'm struggling to find something that compares with the quality of this. I am converted heavily. Anyway, guys. Greebo Games, Dwarf team, the ThunderCougar FalconBeards is awesome. Keep an eye out for the Kickstarter, because this team, it doesn't even matter if you want to play Dwarves or not. Like, just pick it up. The miniatures are fantastic. I cannot wait to paint these. And if you're in the market for Chaos Dwarves, these guys, just run 6 of these. If you're in the market for some Dwarves for your OWA team, first of all, props to you trying to take that team on. But secondly, just pick up this. And this Death Roller, while not a classic Death Roller, it's just outrageously fun. Anyway, guys, I'm going to disappear now. All the links to Greebo are below. Give them a follow if you're not already. You're watching a Blood Bowl channel, so you probably are following them already. But seriously, unnecessarily good. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.